Building on his reputation as a man of strong principles and independence, Burt Lancaster's decision to hire homosexual employees reflected his deep belief in fairness and equality. Throughout his career, Lancaster often stood apart from his peers due to his willingness to challenge social norms and support causes he cared about quietly but firmly. He understood that talent and integrity mattered more than personal labels, and he valued loyalty, honesty, and professionalism among those he worked with. By creating a work environment that welcomed diverse sexualities, Lancaster showed that he prioritized human dignity over societal expectations, making room for individuals to be their authentic selves without fear of discrimination or prejudice. His actions demonstrated a subtle but powerful push against the prejudice of his time, highlighting his understanding that fostering a welcoming workplace would lead to better creativity, trust, and unity. This choice in hiring practices was a reflection of Lancaster's personal strength and his commitment to building an inclusive, respectful community within the Hollywood industry, long before such ideas became widely accepted. From the moment Burt Lancaster stepped onto the screen, he embodied the image of the ideal American male. Tall, confident, and charming, he had a look that combined rugged strength with natural elegance. Audiences watched him portray fearless characters in movies like Elmer Gantry, From Here to Eternity, and Birdman of Alcatraz, roles that showcased his moral conviction and physical prowess. His angular facial features, intense eyes, and commanding voice made him a magnetic presence, inspiring admiration and respect. Yet, behind this compelling public persona, Lancaster was a complex individual with a private life that often defied stereotypes. Those who knew him personally described him as deeply private, sometimes to a fault, choosing to reveal only certain parts of himself. He was intellectual, principled, and fiercely loyal, but also reserved, offering warmth and humor only to a close circle of trusted friends. Despite Hollywood's portrayal of him as a dedicated family man, married multiple times and fathering 5 children, there were truths beneath the surface that rarely appeared in the tabloids or gossip columns. He tended to associate with people who challenged societal norms, especially noting many gay artists and professionals among his acquaintances. This implied a more progressive attitude and, perhaps, a personal connection to issues of equality and acceptance. In an era when stepping outside societal expectations could threaten a career, Lancaster moved carefully, exuding a dignified mystery that left many questions unanswered. His public image suggested one thing, but his private life revealed a depth and contradictions that kept others guessing, hinting that the true Burt Lancaster was far more layered than he appeared on the surface. From the early days of his career, Burt Lancaster stood apart in Hollywood by challenging the strict social norms that often govern the industry. Known for his fairness and open-mindedness, Lancaster believed that talent, loyalty, and good human qualities mattered more than social status or conformity. Long before others in Hollywood began to talk about diversity and inclusion as values, Lancaster quietly created opportunities for people from marginalized communities, especially gay men and lesbians, hiring them for trusted roles and creative positions. These actions were not performed to gather praise, but came from his genuine belief that everyone deserved respect and a chance to work without hiding who they truly were. His approach was considered radical because many in Hollywood still clung to old prejudices. On his sets and in his productions, Lancaster fostered an environment that became a safe space for those who often faced discrimination and secrecy outside the studio walls. Despite the public image of a traditional, family-oriented man with high-profile marriages and children, he broke from this mold by supporting inclusivity behind the scenes. He accepted people for their character, not their outward appearance or societal expectations. This silent stand against bigotry made Lancaster a quietly revolutionary figure who used his influence to challenge Hollywood's unspoken rules. His approach helped open a space for a different kind of community rooted in acceptance, making his legacy more than just as an actor, but as someone who moved the industry toward a more humane and inclusive future. During the years from the 1950s through the 1970s, whispers about Burt Lancaster's sexuality surrounded him, casting a shadow that never fully vanished. In a time when even the slightest suggestion of homosexuality could lead to career-ending scandals, these rumors were both dangerous and persistent. The FBI, led by J. Edgar Hoover at the time, showed a keen interest in Lancaster, and surveillance efforts were intense. Reports were carefully compiled, and although these documents weren't released until after Lancaster's death, they reveal a troubling level of scrutiny into his private life. They tracked his friendships, social associations, and rumored relationships with both men and women. Some sources hint that Lancaster might have had secret romantic encounters with men. However, these claims are mainly based on second-hand accounts and remain unproven. What is clearer, though, is the pattern in his professional choices, where he frequently hired LGBTQ individuals for significant roles. For some, this was a quiet act of support, an attempt to create a more inclusive environment despite the hostile atmosphere. For others, it may have reflected his own internal feelings or connections, though he never publicly confirmed or denied anything. Whether the rumors had any truth or were simply part of the era's paranoia, the fact remains that Lancaster's life was under constant watch. This relentless surveillance underscores the fears and prejudices of that time, illuminating how public figures had to navigate a world obsessed with controlling personal freedoms under the guise of maintaining national morality. It also speaks to the quiet bravery required to live authentically when every move was scrutinized and judged by a society eager to deny individuality. From the start of his career, Burt Lancaster made a deliberate choice to keep his private life shrouded in mystery. Unlike many actors of his era who often denied rumors or issued official statements to control their image, Lancaster chose silence. He never addressed questions about his relationships or personal affairs, whether they involved romantic partners or friendships that others speculated about. This decision to remain silent was not accidental, but intentional. It protected his reputation and allowed the public's imagination to fill in the gaps, making his persona even more compelling. In an industry that demands transparency and control over image, Lancaster's refusal to comment became a quiet act of rebellion. His silence kept him apart from the usual Hollywood drama, and in doing so, he fostered an aura of enigma that surrounded him. Whether the rumors of affairs with both women and men were true or not, Lancaster never confirmed or denied them. Instead, he let the speculation grow, knowing that ambiguity held more power than certainty. Many saw his devotion to privacy as an extension of his on-screen strength, a character who was tough, complex, and deeply private. Fans and biographers are left to piece together his true life from interviews, memoirs, and third-party stories. But perhaps Lancaster wanted it that way. His mystique was not just a fortunate accident. It was carefully crafted. By controlling what information reached the outside world, he shaped his entire identity, making him a legendary figure whose true self remains partly hidden. The allure of his secrecy only adds to the charisma that made him an iconic actor and a man who refused ever to be fully understood by the outside world. Immediately before Burt Lancaster became a well-known figure in Hollywood, he led a life filled with adventure and physical challenges that set him apart from most movie stars. Born in East Harlem in 1913, Lancaster grew up in a neighborhood known for hard work and resilience. His early years were not shaped by dreams of fame, but by the realities of a working-class life amid the struggles of the Great Depression. Instead of following a usual path to fame, Lancaster made a bold choice to join the circus during his youth. He became a skilled trapeze artist with the K Brothers Circus, where he learned the importance of discipline, timing, and physical agility. His years performing as an acrobat gave him a strong and athletic body, which became an important part of his screen presence later on. It also gave him a unique sense of performance that made his acting more authentic, especially in action scenes. During World War II, Lancaster joined the U.S. Army and performed for troops through the United Service Organizations. These experiences made him even more dedicated to entertaining and performing. When he finally entered Hollywood at age 33, he was not a young newcomer. He had a rough, mature edge that made him stand out. His background gave him a commanding presence on screen and a fierce desire to have artistic freedom, influences that stayed with him throughout his career. From the start of his career, Burt Lancaster was never content to just follow the standard path set by studio bosses. Instead of being a typical contract player, he made a daring move that was almost unheard of in the 1950s by founding his own production company, Hecht Hill Lancaster. This gave him control over many aspects of his work, allowing him to choose his roles, influence scripts, and pick the people he wanted to work with. This level of independence was rare for actors at the time and allowed him to pursue films that were different and often challenging. Films like Marty, which won an Oscar, Sweet Smell of Success, which had a sharp and edgy tone, and The Leopard, a grand Italian film about social change, all showed his desire to push boundaries. Through these projects, he proved himself not only as a talented actor, but also as a producer who cared about meaningful stories. While he gained respect for his honest choices on screen, his private life became the subject of many whispers. Lancaster kept his personal life very private, but was known for surrounding himself with a wide variety of friends and associates. Rumors about his relationships circulated quietly, but persistently in Hollywood. Stories of intimate connections with both men and women. He was known to be charismatic and sensual, but he also kept his privacy fiercely protected. These stories, fueled by his refusal to conform to traditional ideas of masculinity, added a layer of mystery to his persona. He challenged the expectations of what a leading man should be, and lived by his own rules, which left many of his personal details unresolved and open to speculation. His silence on these matters only fueled the legend that grew around him, making him a figure both admired and enigmatic in Hollywood history. From the moment Burt Lancaster appeared on screen, audiences felt a magnetic pull towards his sensual intensity. His performances radiated a raw, almost hypnotic energy that drew viewers into worlds of passion and vulnerability. The most memorable example of this was the legendary beach scene with Deborah Carr in From Here to Eternity, where Lancaster's character showcased a perfect balance of masculine strength and tender longing. That scene became a symbol of post-war American desire, capturing the complex emotions that men often carried beneath a tough exterior. Yet, behind the camera, Lancaster was a different man altogether. Those who knew him personally described him as deeply curious about life and ideas, always eager to learn and explore new thoughts. Friends spoke of his introspectiveness and emotional generosity, qualities that contrasted sharply with the rugged masculinity he portrayed in films. His private life was equally complex, with a reputation for being more nuanced than his on-screen persona suggested. Rumors persisted of discreet same-sex relationships, with insiders sharing whispers about profound connections with certain male companions. These weren't accusations meant to shame, but quiet truths exchanged among trusted friends and colleagues, reflecting a man who refused to conform publicly. Rather than deny these thoughts or fear judgments, Lancaster chose to live with quiet defiance, embracing his genuine self amid a landscape that often demanded false appearances. His ability to embody desire on stage, while keeping a deeply layered inner world, made him a distinctive figure in Hollywood, someone who effortlessly blurred the line between acting and authentic existence. In an era when Hollywood stars often felt pressured to reveal every detail of their lives to maintain their public image, Burt Lancaster chose a path of silent defiance that set him apart and added to his enduring mystique. During mid-century America, a time characterized by conservative social values and an emphasis on appearance, Lancaster's decision not to discuss rumors about his sexuality was extraordinary. While many celebrities responded to speculation with carefully crafted press statements, stage photographs, or outright denials, Lancaster remained silent, allowing his actions in films and his manner in life to define him. He saw no need to publicly address the gossip that followed him for years, instead trusting that his work and integrity would speak louder than words. Those around him, including trusted friends, lifelong collaborators, and even former lovers, upheld a silent pact of loyalty, choosing to respect his privacy by not revealing details he wished to keep private. This silence was not driven by shame, but by a desire to maintain control over his personal narrative. In a culture obsessed with judging and labeling, Lancaster's refusal to conform to industry norms transformed silence into a form of protest. His stance subtly questioned societal expectations and reinforced his independence, carving out a space where ambiguity became a source of power. This quiet resistance made him not just a star, but a symbol of self-preservation in a world eager to scrutinize and expose, turning privacy into an act of defiance against societal intrusion. His deliberate choice to speak through his work and actions rather than words created a lasting legacy of integrity and mystery that remains influential to this day. Building on his career achievements, Burt Lancaster's activism extended far beyond Hollywood's silver screen, reflecting a deep commitment to fighting injustice and defending civil rights. During a time when fear and silence often ruled in the entertainment industry, Lancaster chose to speak out boldly. He openly opposed the McCarthy-era blacklist that damaged or ended many careers by accusing actors and writers of communist sympathies without proof. Lancaster was not afraid to challenge the House Un-American Activities Committee, which sought to root out supposed communist influence in Hollywood and other parts of America. His vocal stance made him stand apart from those who preferred to stay quiet in hopes of avoiding trouble. Over the years, Lancaster marched side by side with leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., supporting the civil rights movement and advocating for equality and justice. He also backed liberal candidates and supported causes that were often unpopular or controversial at the time, risking his reputation and career. Because of his brave stance, the FBI kept a close watch on him, compiling a file that classified him as a potential threat to national security. This was due to his political connections and progressive ideas that challenged government overreach. Despite the scrutiny and surveillance, Lancaster remained steadfast. He refused to hide his beliefs or soften his stance, unlike many colleagues who kept their views private. His actions demonstrated a clear moral stance rooted in independence and a desire to make a difference. He believed that using his fame for good was important, even if it meant facing backlash from the government or society. Lancaster's courageous stand for free expression and justice defined his legacy, making him a symbol of integrity and fearlessness. In truth, he understood that standing up for what was right sometimes came with risks, but he chose to do it anyway, inspiring others to follow his example. Despite Burt Lancaster's image on screen as a figure of strength and romantic heroism, his personal life was filled with challenges. His marriage to Norma Anderson began in 1946 and was often overshadowed by controversy from the start. It is believed that their union was hurried to avoid the consequences of an unplanned pregnancy, a situation not uncommon in that era when couples often married quickly to handle such circumstances. Lancaster and Norma had 5 children together, but their marriage was far from idyllic. Friends and biographers describe an ongoing struggle filled with tension and emotional distance. Lancaster's career often kept him away on film shoots, and he was engaged in causes that pulled him further from home life, which added to their disconnect. Rumors of infidelity started to circulate, creating further strain on their relationship. By the early 1960s, their marriage was effectively broken, even though they remained legally married for several more years. They officially separated in 1969 and went through a divorce in 1972. This split reflected more than just personal differences. It revealed a deeper inner conflict Lancaster faced between fulfilling traditional family expectations and exploring his own identity and ambitions. His early scandals, though kept largely out of the public eye by Hollywood's unspoken rules of discretion, pointed to a man caught between duty and desire, stability, and the need for freedom. Despite being physically present in his children's lives and maintaining contact with them as they grew, Burt Lancaster's emotional connection to his family was often described as distant. Those close to him, and biographers like Kate Buford, observed that while his loyalty to his loved ones was genuine, his restless spirit and love of intellectual pursuits created a barrier to intimacy. Lancaster's passions extended beyond his family into areas such as literature, politics, and the performing arts. He frequently engaged in activities like marching in civil rights protests, exploring philosophy, or working with filmmakers from around the world. These endeavors drew him away from home and occupied much of his energy, leaving a sense of longing among his children for more of his attention and presence. His wives saw a man capable of warmth and charm, but also one who could become distant and unreachable when pulled by his pursuits. His character was complex. He was not neglectful in the traditional sense, but his struggles lay in balancing the demands of his private life with a larger desire for external impact. Lancaster's internal conflicts and pursuit of meaning made him a man of contradictions, loving and charismatic in moments, yet often emotionally elusive. This ongoing tension between personal responsibilities and a compelling drive toward external achievements defined much of his life, revealing the nuanced layers beneath his fame as an actor. Without a doubt, Burt Lancaster exemplified the perfect balance between charisma and refinement, making him stand out among Hollywood stars of his time. His physical presence was undeniable, an imposing frame and striking, chiseled features that immediately captured attention. But what truly distinguished him was the way he combined this rugged exterior with a cultivated sense of grace and style. His demeanor reflected a deep sense of sophistication, which was evident not just in his appearance, but also in his manner of conduct and interactions. Lancaster's love for books, his deliberate conversations, and the people he chose to spend time with all communicated a man of intellect and subtle elegance. As he grew older, many began to see him as more than just a charismatic actor. He became a symbol of cultural finesse, often likened to icons like Marlene Dietrich and Cary Grant, who similarly managed to blend charm with class. His sense of style went beyond costume and wardrobe. It was in the way he carried himself, moving with confidence and ease. He notably defied traditional Hollywood notions of masculinity, forming genuine relationships that crossed gender boundaries and were rooted in mutual respect and emotional honesty. His friendships and associations often rose above superficial appearances, reflecting a true depth. The essence of Lancaster's charm was not just his outward appeal, but an authentic inner confidence that praised knowledge, expressed individuality, and resisted the pressures to conform. Whether engaging in political debates, attending high society dinners, or working on a remote European film set, he carried himself with a mix of raw magnetism and intellectual curiosity, making him a figure both approachable and intriguing, blending the classic with the modern with effortless grace. Growing up in the crowded tenements of East Harlem, Burt Lancaster's early life was shaped by a neighborhood full of ethnic diversity and economic hardship. Born in 1913 to Irish-American parents, he learned to be tough and street-smart, living among people who faced many challenges. When his mother died young, he had to take on responsibilities to help support his family, which made him even more determined and resilient. As a boy, Lancaster found comfort and discipline in sports, especially gymnastics, which kept him active and focused. Despite this, his journey to becoming a famous actor was not clear-cut or easy. He didn't start out dreaming of Hollywood, and it was only in his 30s that he accidentally discovered acting. While working in theater after World War II, a talent scout saw him perform and helped him get a role in the movie The Killers in 1946. That film was a huge success and made him an instant star. From then on, Lancaster's career quickly grew. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, he starred in many popular movies that made him a respected and highly profitable actor. His talent and daring rise from a tough childhood to Hollywood fame earned him lasting recognition. Many years later, the American Film Institute ranked Lancaster 19th among the greatest male stars of classic Hollywood, showing how extraordinary his climb to the top really was. Before Lancaster dazzled audiences with his powerful film performances, he captivated crowds with his athletic prowess. His natural abilities as a gymnast earned him a spot on the New York University gymnastics team, where he quickly proved his strength and agility. Not content to stop there, he also worked as a professional acrobat in traveling circuses, performing daring stunts that required exceptional physical control and confidence. These experiences not only shaped his body, but also instilled in him discipline, dedication, and a deep understanding of teamwork and performance. His agility and strength translated effortlessly into his later action roles, allowing him to perform many of his own stunts well into his 50s, which set him apart in Hollywood. During World War II, Lancaster enlisted in the United States Army and joined the Special Services Division, where he performed for troops through the USO. His acts served more than just entertainment. They were morale boosters for soldiers fighting far from home, providing comfort and a moment of joy amid harsh conditions. These wartime experiences broadened his perspective, giving him a real sense of purpose and resilience. They also sharpened his stage presence, giving him a natural poise and timing that helped him transition smoothly into film acting. Combined with the physical skills and emotional maturity he gained from his early hardships, Lancaster entered Hollywood as more than just a handsome face. He was a performer shaped by life's challenges, whose authenticity, strength, and commitment would define his legendary career. Immediately after his groundbreaking role in The Killers, Burt Lancaster's ascent in Hollywood seemed almost unstoppable. His portrayal of Ole Sweet Anderson, a former boxer caught in a web of fate and consequence, left a lasting impression on critics and viewers alike. Despite having no prior experience in movies, Lancaster's natural physicality and emotional depth made him stand out as a true talent. His intense performance brought a new kind of masculinity to the silver screen, one that was raw, vulnerable, and deeply human. This role was more than just a break. It was a revelation in how male characters could be portrayed with complexity and authenticity. The film itself, based on a story by Ernest Hemingway, was dark and moody, focusing on themes of regret and bad luck, which Lancaster captured with remarkable intensity. Critics quickly recognized that he had a mesmerizing presence and a unique ability to embody raw emotion. The success of The Killers launched Lancaster's career, and he soon starred in nearly 80 films, each showcasing his versatility and talent. Yet, none of his performances would overshadow his debut, which changed Hollywood's idea of what a leading man could be. It proved that genuine talent and heartfelt acting could break through the polished surface of filmmaking, paving the way for more emotionally honest stories and characters. Lancaster's rise demonstrated that authenticity could be more compelling than perfection, and that passion could transform the industry. Certainly, Burt Lancaster's personal life was far from the glamorous image often portrayed in headlines and reviews. His marriage to Norma Anderson began in 1946, but quickly became strained. The union was largely driven by circumstance, reportedly sparked by an unplanned pregnancy, and soon turned into a relationship filled with unhappiness. As Lancaster's career skyrocketed almost immediately, he was often away from home for long periods, immersing himself in a world of fame, temptation, and creative drive. The constant travel and focus on his career added pressure to their marriage, and Lancaster's frequent affairs, which included rumored liaisons with co-stars, and even individuals of both genders, gradually shattered trust. Norma, once hopeful, started feeling emotionally isolated as she watched her marriage deteriorate. Public scandals occasionally surfaced, but behind closed doors, the emotional toll was severe. Norma reportedly turned to alcohol as a coping mechanism, and her alcohol misuse was widely believed to be linked to the emotional devastation caused by Lancaster's betrayals and absences. Despite having 5 children together, the emotional bonds gradually broke down beyond repair, illustrating the painful costs of living a life under constant public scrutiny. After the filming of The Killers, Burt Lancaster found himself at a crossroads, caught between personal feelings and social expectations. When Norma Anderson discovered she was pregnant, Lancaster's initial response was reluctance. His career was just beginning to rise, and the idea of becoming a father so early seemed overwhelming. He reportedly even considered the possibility of ending the pregnancy, but Norma's strong Catholic faith and moral beliefs led her to reject that idea. As a result, Lancaster and Norma faced intense pressure to marry, not out of love or desire, but out of obligation and societal pressure. They married quickly, and Lancaster's feelings about the marriage were complicated from the start. He felt unsure about the responsibilities of domestic life and the commitment he had made. This created ongoing tension as feelings of resentment and conflicting priorities built up over the years. Their marriage lasted more than 20 years, but the emotional connection between them was often strained. The marriage was a reflection of the larger challenges faced by many in Hollywood at the time, how personal desires often clashed with social standards and the expectations of fame. For Lancaster, the relationship was a mix of duty and unspoken disappointment, a private struggle that mirrored the complex pressures of being a public figure trying to balance personal conviction with career demands. From beginning to end, their story shows how difficult it can be to reconcile personal freedom with societal roles, especially in an environment that often judged every personal choice. Throughout his career, Burt Lancaster was not only known for his powerful performances on screen, but also for his outspoken liberal views that set him apart from many of his peers. During a time when Hollywood actors often kept their opinions quiet to avoid controversy, Lancaster chose to speak openly about issues he cared deeply about. He believed strongly in civil liberties and racial equality, and often used his voice to advocate for these causes. Lancaster opposed the Hollywood blacklist, a list that many writers and actors were placed on because of alleged communist ties, and he was one of the few stars willing to challenge the House Un-American Activities Committee during the Red Scare. This brave stance made him stand out, and sometimes put him in trouble with government officials. He didn't just stay silent, he stood with blacklisted artists, did not shy away from criticizing government overreach, and was willing to speak out against injustices. His protests included marching with civil rights leaders, giving speeches condemning systemic racism, and protesting against the Vietnam War. His political convictions earned him respect from those who shared his beliefs, but also made him targets for scrutiny. The FBI even opened a file on him, viewing him as a possible threat to national security, not because he did anything illegal, but because of his powerful voice and willingness to stand up for what was right. Lancaster's readiness to risk his career to speak out showed his strong sense of conscience and deep commitment to justice. These qualities made him more than just a star. He became a symbol of integrity at a time when fear and repression often silenced many. Following many years filled with dramatic ups and downs, Burt Lancaster sought peace and companionship in his later years. After experiencing many different relationships and moments of personal reflection, he found comfort in Susan Martin, a woman 30 years younger than him. Their relationship started quietly in the 1980s, during a time when Lancaster was quietly retreating from the busy public eye. Over the years, their connection grew stronger, and in 1990 they decided to marry. By that time, Lancaster's health was in decline after he had a severe stroke in 1990, which left him partially paralyzed. Despite this, Susan stayed with him, providing emotional support and companionship through this difficult period. Their marriage was simple and full of quiet companionship, quite different from his previous marriages that often involved passion or high expectations. During his final years, Lancaster kept away from the spotlight, choosing to spend more time with family, to focus on his health, and to enjoy privacy. His health gradually worsened, and he was affected by the physical limitations of his stroke. On October 20, 1994, just weeks before turning 81, Burt Lancaster died suddenly of a heart attack in his home in Los Angeles. His passing closed the chapter on a life marked by remarkable achievements, personal struggles, and a complex character that defined him. Even in his last days, Lancaster remained true to his own beliefs, living by his own rules, creating his unique path through life, and leaving behind a legacy that continues to influence and inspire many. Immediately after his breakout role in The Killers, Burt Lancaster's career took a rapid upward trajectory. His portrayal of Old Swede captured audiences with a kind of raw power and emotional depth that was rare in debut performances. In the film, Lancaster's physicality and intense screen presence brought to life the complex themes of fate and remorse, resonating deeply with viewers in a nation grappling with post-war uncertainties. His ability to blend brute strength with a subtle vulnerability made his character memorable, and critics praised his natural authenticity. The success of The Killers opened doors for Lancaster, who quickly became one of Hollywood's most sought-after actors. His performances continued to show a unique mix of toughness and sensitivity, setting him apart from many of his peers. The accolades he received, including a prestigious Best Actor award from the National Board of Review, confirmed his status. The film's reception not only launched his career, but also established a distinctive screen persona centered on masculinity, resilience, and a hint of mystery. With this initial breakthrough, Lancaster's star power grew, and he was soon cast in a variety of roles that showcased his versatility and deepened his reputation as a leading man. His reputation as a physically formidable actor, combined with his ability to convey complex emotional states, helped him stay relevant through the years. As his career developed, Lancaster continued to balance roles that demanded both physical prowess and emotional intelligence, building on the foundation he established with his debut. The success of The Killers proved to be a turning point, turning him from a relatively unknown performer into a major Hollywood figure. His early performances marked the start of decades of influential work, shaping how masculinity and vulnerability could coexist on the silver screen. Throughout his career, Lancaster remained true to the qualities that brought him fame: his strength, charisma, and emotional honesty, qualities that audiences and critics alike admired. His rise from a former acrobat to a cinematic icon exemplified how talent, combined with a natural screen presence, can carve out a lasting legacy in Hollywood. The impact of his first role in The Killers stayed with him, influencing the roles he chose and the performances he delivered for many years. His early success laid the groundwork for a career that would span numerous genres and styles, all built upon the powerful image he first created in that remarkable film. From the start of Burt Lancaster's career, he seemed to embody the classic image of a successful Hollywood star. But behind that polished facade, his personal life was far from perfect. He married Norma Anderson shortly after his first film debuted, and for a time, they appeared to be a happy, devoted couple. They had 5 children together, and outwardly, their life seemed to reflect the ideal post-war American dream: a handsome actor, a wife who supported him, and a growing family. However, the reality was quite different. Lancaster's busy film schedule kept him away from home much of the time, which created a distance between him and Norma. During his rise to fame, whispers of his infidelity began to circulate, and those rumors became harder to ignore as years went on. Despite his outward charm and charisma, Lancaster struggled with balancing his career demands and his private life. Norma, once spirited and supportive, grew increasingly unhappy and reportedly began to drink more as feelings of betrayal and loneliness took over her. Friends who knew the couple observed a growing lack of genuine connection between them, and as their marriage wore on, it seemed held together more by appearances than love. The emotional toll of a life split between fame and family weighed heavily on Lancaster, and the marriage eventually fell apart. It was a reflection of a deeper internal conflict, a man caught between his desire for recognition and his own emotional needs. While he continued to shine on screen, his home life showed signs of a man unable to fully reconcile the differences. His story reveals the loneliness that can come with fame and the difficulty of maintaining authenticity when the world sees only the exterior. Initially, Burt Lancaster's first marriage was driven more by societal expectations than by love. It happened during the filming of The Killers when his relationship with Norma Anderson took a serious turn due to her pregnancy. At that moment, Lancaster was deeply focused on building his film career and saw fatherhood as a possible obstacle to his goals. His immediate reaction, according to many sources, was to suggest ending the pregnancy, but Norma refused because of her strong Catholic beliefs, which made her oppose such an idea. The societal and moral pressures of that time made Lancaster feel he had limited options, so they decided to marry soon after Norma became pregnant. However, from the start, their union was built on shaky ground because the fundamental issues had not been resolved. The disagreement about the pregnancy and their conflicting views about family life created ongoing tension, which grew into a passive resentment and a disconnect between them. Despite staying together for many years, the love that might have existed was overshadowed by feelings of obligation and disappointment. Lancaster's reluctance to embrace fatherhood and his emotional distance as a husband have been cited by biographers and family members as significant reasons for the marriage's failure, as these issues deeply affected their relationship over time. Hearing that Burt Lancaster held outspoken liberal views, it becomes clear that he was more than just a talented actor. He was a man willing to use his voice for causes he believed in, despite the risks involved. During a time when Hollywood was often ruled by cautious studios and fearful of political backlash, Lancaster refused to stay silent. From the 1950s onward, he openly opposed social injustices and supported civil rights, showing a deep commitment to fairness and equality. He fought against the blacklist that hurt many writers, directors, and actors suspected of communist ties, risking his reputation by standing with these blacklisted artists. Lancaster did not just speak out. He acted by hiring some of these artists for his projects, defying studio pressures and government scrutiny. His resistance extended beyond Hollywood, supporting civil rights legislation, advocating for nuclear disarmament, and opposing the Vietnam War. The FBI kept a close eye on him, monitoring his associations and public comments, yet this only strengthened his determination. To Lancaster, silence in the face of injustice was not an option. He believed that, as a public figure, he owed a duty to stand up for what was right, even if it meant facing criticism or standing alone. His activism was genuine and deeply connected to his sense of purpose, making him a figure who used his fame to challenge injustice at every turn. Later in his life, Burt Lancaster sought a quiet sense of peace and personal fulfillment that had often been missing earlier in his years. By the 1980s, after decades of fame, activism, and personal struggles, he found companionship with Susan Martin, who was much younger and worked as a television production coordinator. Their relationship was gentle and steady, lasting quietly for 8 years before they decided to marry in 1990. Unlike his first marriage, which was filled with ups and downs, this marriage was characterized by mutual understanding and a calmer, more subdued connection. When they married, Lancaster was already facing health problems because he had suffered a major stroke that left him partially paralyzed and severely affected his physical health. Susan played a vital role during this difficult time, staying by his side, caring for him, and helping him keep his dignity despite his physical decline. Though he had stepped back from public life and political activism, Lancaster kept his mind active through reading and writing in private, and staying connected with his children and close friends. His life ended on October 20, 1994, when he died of a heart attack at his home in Los Angeles, just weeks before turning 81. His passing marked the conclusion of a life that was full of contradictions as well as achievements, a life lived boldly, driven by passion, principles, mystery, and a strong will to shape his own story without being boxed in by others' expectations. In the conservative and highly paranoid climate of 1950s America, Burt Lancaster's progressive politics and private associations placed him directly in the crosshairs of J. Edgar Hoover's FBI. As a vocal critic of McCarthyism and an opponent of the Hollywood blacklist, Lancaster had already drawn unwanted government attention. However, what made his case particularly sensitive were the persistent rumors surrounding his personal life, especially his alleged ties to individuals within Hollywood's closeted LGBTQ circles. At a time when homosexuality was not only taboo, but criminalized in many states, such associations were considered grounds for moral suspicion and potential blackmail. Lancaster's long-standing friendship with Rock Hudson, a beloved actor whose own sexuality remained a carefully guarded secret during his lifetime, only deepened federal interest. Reports suggest Lancaster's name appeared in FBI files linking him to social events and artistic circles considered subversive, not because of any legal wrongdoing, but because of his defiance of social norms and unapologetic alliances. His surveillance wasn't merely a matter of political fear, it was also a cultural witch hunt, targeting those who lived or supported lives outside the mainstream. Despite the scrutiny, Lancaster never distanced himself from those who were vulnerable to public scorn, instead maintaining friendships and professional ties that reflected his enduring belief in personal freedom and human dignity. While the world mostly knew Burt Lancaster as a talented actor and a charismatic public figure, behind the scenes, there were persistent whispers about his involvement in discreet Hollywood gatherings that lasted for decades. These gatherings were secret events that provided a safe space for people whose lives didn't quite fit into the usual expectations of society. Often, they included actors, writers, and other creative individuals who maintained carefully controlled public images, but inside, embraced more complex, and sometimes hidden realities. Eyewitness accounts from those who worked in Hollywood and retrospective memoirs of industry insiders describe Lancaster moving easily through these underground social circles. Rather than judging or ostracizing, he reportedly offered support and friendship, showing a sense of loyalty that was rare for a star of his caliber. In an era when revealing nonconformist traits could mean risking careers and reputation, Lancaster's quiet participation in these gatherings questioned traditional norms and gave others courage to be authentic. He became admired by many for his bravery and sense of integrity, even if he never publicly acknowledged his involvement. His dual life, embodying traditional masculinity on screen while quietly defying societal expectations off-screen, made him a symbol of contrast. His presence at these secret events was often subtle but meaningful, suggesting he valued genuine connections and wanted to be true to himself beyond the confines of Hollywood's polished image. To those aware of his secret engagements, Lancaster represented a man who understood the importance of community, loyalty, and living authentically, even in silence. During the 1980s, when the AIDS epidemic was spreading rapidly through Hollywood, and many members of the entertainment community were falling ill or dying, Burt Lancaster quietly emerged as an important supporter of AIDS awareness and those affected by the disease. His long-standing friendship with Rock Hudson, who was one of the most well-known victims, gained new significance during this difficult time. When Hudson became too ill to attend a big charity event that aimed to raise money for AIDS research, Lancaster chose to step in and take his place on stage. Instead of just speaking, he read aloud a heartfelt letter written by Hudson. The letter expressed gratitude for the support Hudson received, sadness over his own suffering, and a plea for kindness and understanding from the public and the industry. Lancaster's act was not just symbolic. It was a true gesture of compassion and bravery, especially at a time when many people in Hollywood and beyond were afraid to acknowledge AIDS openly. By standing up publicly in support of a stigmatized disease, Lancaster helped challenge the fear and discrimination surrounding AIDS. His decision to support the cause despite the risks of social judgment showed his deep empathy and loyalty to his friends. Even though he never publicly discussed the details of his friendship with Hudson, his actions remember how courage can lie in small, silent acts that make a big difference in times of crisis. After reaching the 1980s, Burt Lancaster's once vibrant and commanding presence began to fade as his health rapidly declined. In 1980, he suffered a severe stroke that drastically changed the course of his life. The stroke left him partially paralyzed, significantly impairing his mobility and robbing him of much of his ability to speak. The man who was celebrated for his powerful voice and dynamic performances now faced the harsh reality of life in a wheelchair, which severely limited his physical actions and made communication difficult. This sudden change marked a devastating turning point, effectively ending his active film career and forcing him into a reluctant retirement. Despite his sharp mind and enduring curiosity, his body no longer responded to his will. Friends and family observed the emotional toll his health crisis took on him, as he wrestled with feelings of loss, frustration, and sadness. Although he made a few rare public appearances after the stroke, these moments were infrequent and often marked by visible difficulty. His decline was a stark contrast to the fearless, vigorous life he had once led, filled with bold choices, pioneering artistry, and passionate beliefs. His final years were spent largely in seclusion, cared for by his wife Susan Martin and his children, while he faced the quiet devastation of losing independence and the physical vitality that had once defined him. Despite the tragic nature of his decline, he remained a figure remembered for his extraordinary contributions to film and his fearless spirit. Throughout his career, Burt Lancaster was known for making unconventional hiring decisions, particularly when it came to his personal staff. Many noted his preference for hiring male secretaries, some of whom were later identified as openly or discreetly gay within Hollywood's inner circles. In an industry where reputation was everything, these choices spoke volumes. Rather than aligning with Hollywood's carefully curated images of masculinity and heterosexuality, Lancaster seemed unconcerned with public opinion, valuing trust, competence, and loyalty above all else. These staffing choices fed into the ongoing public speculation about his own sexuality, but they also reinforced his long-standing commitment to supporting marginalized individuals in a deeply conservative industry. His artistic decisions reflected this as well. In Conversation Piece, Lancaster portrayed a reclusive, emotionally complex professor entangled with a younger man, a story rife with themes of suppressed desire and introspection. The film, seen by many as autobiographical in tone, sparked renewed discussion about Lancaster's private life, and seemed to reflect the inner tensions he had carried for years. Whether or not the character mirrored his personal experiences, the role marked yet another instance in which Lancaster refused to shy away from ambiguity, choosing instead to engage with the complexities of human identity, on screen and off. Despite the public's curiosity about Burt Lancaster's personal life, he never directly addressed the rumors surrounding his sexuality. Throughout his life, he remained silent on the subject, choosing not to confirm or deny speculation about whether he was bisexual. Still, people close to him, including ex-wives, friends, and biographers, often hinted at a more layered truth behind his private life. These hints suggested that Lancaster connected emotionally and romantically in ways that crossed traditional boundaries, but he never explicitly shared these details. His actions and attitudes, such as not condemning non-traditional lifestyles, showed a level of empathy and understanding toward those who were marginalized or different from societal norms. During a time when revealing a bisexual orientation could harm a career or reputation, Lancaster's decision to live quietly, without labels or apologies, represented a quiet act of support for freedom of identity. His calm refusal to speak openly about his sexuality gave him control over his story, yet left subtle clues for those willing to interpret them. Whether or not he personally identified as bisexual remains a mystery, but his comfort with fluidity and his silent solidarity with those who did is evident. His stance, in essence, positioned him as an unintentional pioneer, embodying a quiet revolution against the demands of conformity and the pressure to fit into a rigid moral framework. His attitude toward love, relationships, and personal truth reflected a broader acceptance of human complexity, making him not just a Hollywood star, but a figure who subtly challenged the norms of his time. Despite his fame, Burt Lancaster remained a man full of contradictions and curiosity. His public image was a blend of qualities that seemed to be in conflict with each other, making him a figure both fascinating and complex. On screen, he was known as a virile leading man who could dominate the scene with his intense presence and rugged masculinity. Off-screen, however, there was a side that was more enigmatic, revealing a man who valued depth, sensitivity, and intellectual pursuits. Many saw Lancaster as a symbol of strength, but also as someone willing to challenge traditional ideas of masculinity by embracing emotional connection and sophistication. Stories about his life added layers to his persona. While he had a reputation as a ladies' man due to his passionate on-screen romances and flirtatious reputation in Hollywood, rumors circulated that he had also posed nude for men's magazines early in his career. These stories, though rarely discussed openly, fueled speculation about his true identity and inner life. They hinted that he was not easy to classify, which only increased his allure. Lancaster refused to conform to standard gender roles, projecting power and toughness while remaining sensitive and reflective. This combination gave him a special kind of charisma that resonated during a time when ideas of masculinity were changing. He showed that strength didn't have to mean hardness, and softness did not mean weakness. His life was a testament to the possibility of coexistence between seemingly opposing qualities, making Lancaster really stand out. His silence about certain parts of his life only made him more intriguing, as he seemed to choose mystery over explanation. For a generation coming to terms with new ideas of identity and masculinity, Lancaster offered silent validation, proof that a man could be bold and mysterious, tough, and tender at the same time. His ability to live within these contrasts made him not just a star, but a symbol of nuanced human experience, emphasizing that true strength often lies in embracing all parts of oneself. From the beginning, Burt Lancaster stood out as a true pioneer in Hollywood, long before it became common for actors to take control of their careers. In the late 1940s, he didn't just accept the traditional studio system that kept performers under strict contracts and limited their creative choices. Instead, Lancaster co-founded Norma Productions, which later became known as Hecht Hill Lancaster. This move marked one of the first times an actor led his own production company, giving him the power to shape his projects from start to finish. By owning his productions, Lancaster was able to pick scripts that interested him, hire blacklisted writers who were often barred from the major studios, and pursue stories that many of the larger studios would have rejected. Taking such a bold step was not without risks. He faced financial uncertainty, potential backlash from critics, and resistance from industry insiders who preferred maintaining the power balance. Despite these obstacles, Lancaster's instincts proved right. His production efforts resulted in standout films like Marty in 1955, which he produced, and which went on to win the Best Picture Oscar. This film helped set a new standard for character-driven stories, and proved that independent filmmaking could succeed on a major scale. Lancaster's success as an actor and producer helped break down the old studio system's control, inspiring other performers like Paul Newman and George Clooney to seek similar independence. His actions didn't just change his own career, they shifted the entire industry's power dynamics. By daring to forge his own path, Lancaster opened doors for future generations of actors to have more control and freedom in their work, transforming Hollywood's landscape in the process. Starting from his beginnings, Burt Lancaster's life was anything but straightforward. His journey was like a complex puzzle filled with many pieces that fit together in unexpected ways. He came from a difficult background in New York City, where life was tough, yet he managed to rise above those challenges and become a well-known star. His rise was not just about fame. It reflected a deep drive to succeed and to carve out his own path. However, beneath the spotlight, Lancaster was more than just a movie actor. He was a man who questioned who he was and what he believed in, constantly exploring new ideas and challenging societal norms. He took on many roles in his life: a soldier who fought for his country, an acrobat who performed feats of strength and balance, a husband committed to his family, a passionate activist fighting for social change, and an often mysterious figure who kept his true feelings hidden. His personality was a blend of romance and mystery, of action and quiet introspection. He refused to conform to narrow ideas of masculinity, often supporting LGBTQ rights and rejecting sanitized stereotypes. He also looked for deeper meaning through literature, philosophy, and meaningful connections with others. While his accomplishments in film were impressive, they only scratched the surface of who he was. Lancaster's true story was about living authentically and embracing his complexity, even when the world prefers simple labels. His choice to live openly and truthfully, without seeking approval or perfection, revealed the remarkable depth of his character and the courage that guided him throughout his life. Building on his reputation as a man of strong principles and independence, Burt Lancaster's decision to hire homosexual employees reflected his deep belief in fairness and equality. Throughout his career, Lancaster often stood apart from his peers due to his willingness to challenge social norms and support causes he cared about quietly but firmly. He understood that talent and integrity mattered more than personal labels, and he valued loyalty, honesty, and professionalism among those he worked with. By creating a work environment that welcomed diverse sexualities, Lancaster showed that he prioritized human dignity over societal expectations, making room for individuals to be their authentic selves without fear of discrimination or prejudice. His actions demonstrated a subtle but powerful push against the prejudice of his time, highlighting his understanding that fostering a welcoming workplace would lead to better creativity, trust, and unity. This choice in hiring practices was a reflection of Lancaster's personal strength and his commitment to building an inclusive, respectful community within the Hollywood industry. Long before such ideas became widely accepted, it showed that he believed in the importance of kindness and respect, and that caring for others beyond superficial boundaries could create a more honest and supportive environment for everyone. His example reminds us that standing up for fairness and equality can have a lasting impact, inspiring others to look beyond differences and see the value in every